Good morning. Welcome to Madison Square Garden. I'm Dan Sabrine with the Knicks Public Relations team. We want to thank you for joining us for today's special press conference as we introduce the 29th head coach in Knicks franchise history. I would also like to welcome everyone watching on MSG Networks and streaming the press conference. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce the gentleman here on stage. To my left is Knicks President Steve Mills. Joining him to the far left is Knicks General Manager Scott Perry. And seated in the middle is the new head coach of the New York Knicks, David Fizdale. An accomplished coach, David's extensive NBA experience includes stints with Golden State and Atlanta, followed by 8 years with Miami, where he was an assistant head coach and part of 2 NBA championship teams. He then went on to become head coach at Memphis, where he led the Grizzlies to the playoffs, and now we are thrilled to have him in New York City. We would like to recognize members of David's family who are here with us, his wife Natasha and his mom Helen. Welcome to the New York Knicks family. We're also joined today by New York Knicks players Lance Thomas, Kyle O'Quinn, and Trey Burke.
Moody, I just said.
And Emmanuel Mudiay. Sorry, I couldn't see you there.
That's right.
We are now going to start with comments from Steve, Scott, and David, followed by questions from the media. Without further ado, to begin, Knicks President Steve Mills.
Good morning. We're excited to be here today and introduce David Fizdale as the coach of the New York Knicks. Bless you. At the conclusion of the season, Scott and I laid out a plan that we were going to conduct a search for our next head coach. He and I identified a series of characteristics and things that were important to us and to our organization in identifying that candidate. And we made a commitment to ourselves and we made a commitment to the organization that we're going to follow through our process. We laid out the steps that we thought were important, and we were committed to not letting any external factors force us to deviate from how we thought the proper way to conduct the search needed to go. So we went through our process. We interviewed 11 candidates. We did a lot of due diligence on all of the candidates, from speaking to people within the organizations they were in before, speaking to coaches they coached against, coaches they coached with, and players that played for them, to understand and to make sure that the person we were identifying had the characteristics that we thought were important to move our organization forward, move the Knicks forward. And when we made the decision that David was the person for us, we looked at a lot of things. We looked at sort of his basketball traits, his basketball integrity. We looked at his commitment to development. We looked at his personal integrity. And we looked at his ability to communicate and lead and partner with us as we tried to move this organization forward. And it's important for us to work as a team and for us to grow together and make sure that we're in a position that we have someone here who has the right presence, not only for the city, not only for our fans, but more importantly, the presence to lead the group of players that we have in our locker room. And we believe sincerely that David is that person. So we're happy to have him.
Thank you, Steve. And now Knicks General Manager Scott Perry.
Yes, this is a very big day for the Knicks organization, for the city of New York, and our tremendous fan base to have David Fizdale join our basketball family here. We're very excited about that. And David, we're getting someone of very high character who shares in the vision that Steve and I have laid forth from the time I came here last July. A vision that includes putting the team on the floor that is tough-minded, defensive-oriented, that's going to compete every single night, a team that's going to reflect accountability on and off the basketball floor, a team that is going to play together on the offensive end, share the basketball, and play with some pace. And looking at David's history, coming from Atlanta, Miami, and Memphis, we believe those teams represented a lot of those qualities. You know, we talked about David's pedigree of being a champion, two-time champion with the Miami Heat, 4 appearances in the conference finals. We believe that experience, among other qualities, will help lead our group of players in the right direction so we can build a sustainable winner here. Also, in going through this process, we were looking for someone who understood that this needs to be a sustainable effort, a daily grind type of effort in putting this team together. Someone who understands a systematic approach to building a successful basketball team, which we believe David brings here. He understands that one of his strongest qualities is his perseverance. I think perseverance has helped shape him be the man he is today and the coach he is today, and we believe that quality will transfer to our players moving forward. And then, as we went through the search, as Steve alluded to, and we called a number of current and former NBA players, a number of coaches and front office executives from around the league, and some common themes seemed to occur from those conversations. Tireless worker, innovative basketball mind, someone who is excellent in connecting with people and working with people, someone who holds people accountable. So all of those qualities led us to David sitting here today, our excitement, and we're really looking forward to partnering with him and building this franchise back into a sustainable winner, and that one day we hope competes for an NBA championship.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Scott. I am now pleased to officially introduce the new head coach of the New York Knicks, David Fizdale.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This is quite humbling to be sitting here today with you guys. I'm so honored to be the head coach of the New York Knicks. I mean, you can't dream of this stuff. You know, I want to start off before I get into it with I want to thank, there's a lot of people when I was fired that reached out to me, that took time and spent time with me, texted, called, checked on me, made sure I was coming out of the house. Those people know who they are. I want to thank you. I want to thank my lovely wife and my awesome mother here. The 2 reasons that I'm probably sitting up here with you are these 2 women. I hope I make you proud. I'm very grateful that you're in my life. I used to tell my mom I was going to play in the Mecca. I'm going to play in the Garden one day when I was a little kid, and I ain't get to do that. I'm going to be coaching here, though. That's right. That's right. I want to thank these 2 gentlemen right here. They talked about the process. I can't tell you how enjoyable it was to meet with these gentlemen, to get to know them. Immediately, you feel character from them. You know, you just feel it coming. It just oozes out of them. Just great human beings, great husbands, great leaders. I'm just really excited about collaborating with you guys and going forward to do exactly, fulfill that vision that we talked about in that interview process. These guys really have a pointed vision that connected to me. Obviously, the history of the Knicks, I don't take that lightly. I'm so proud about that, to be coming to this city, to be integrated in this organization. I don't take that lightly. I really take a lot of pride in that, and I will carry that, and I will roll up my sleeves and work really hard, tirelessly, like you said, to build this culture, to rebuild this culture back, to give these guys a great opportunity to feel basketball success, and eventually maybe we hold that trophy together, guys, right? I want to thank you guys for coming. It means a lot, really does. You know, it's summertime, it's nice out. I think, Trey, you flew in for this. I mean, I appreciate that. That's great of you. That's cool. Moutier, we're going to get to work, kid. We're going to get to work. We're going to get you right, and you are going to be tough to defend, and you're going to be a heck of a defender. We're going to pick that up, right? Sorry, I get a little off track. I'm just really excited to see these guys. You know, they talked about the vision of defense, tough-minded, sharing the ball, pace, culture, accountability. You know, those are just words. You know, a lot of people have them on their walls. I've even put some of those words on walls in places. You know, they're very cliche in a lot of ways, but I really feel like through my experience that I've gotten to live a lot of these words and fail through these words and achieve high things with these words. And, you know, I hope that I will be able to communicate that and share that with these group of men and really collaborate. Again, I just think it takes so much to win in this league. And if one person is off in one way, it crumbles. And so, you know, for us to be here and all on the same page is really awesome for me. And everybody reached out, different people from the organization immediately when this happened. And it just showed me that there's something special about to take place right now. And I'm just happy to be a part of this deal. And again, thank you all for coming. And I'm really proud and excited to take on this challenge of being the new Knicks coach.
Thank you, David. Now we're going to open up the floor for questions from the media. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand, and a microphone will be brought over to you. When it's your turn, please state your name and affiliation. Thank you.
Ian Begley, ESPN.com. You know, Coach, you mentioned some of those players over there. I think Knicks fans are wondering, what are your thoughts on Kristaps Porzingis as a player and how he fits into the future of this organization, because he does have the extension coming up this summer?
I would say the best way to describe he's the future of the NBA. I mean, you look around these teams that's still playing right now, and they all got guys that are super long, super athletic, super skilled, super tough-minded, incredible workers, and that is what he embodies. You know, obviously I don't know him personally yet, but I did my background too, and he fits all of the qualities of a megastar and a guy who can really propel a franchise forward to high places.
Brian Mahoney, Associated Press. David, it seemed like you had a lot of options too, a lot of interest around the league from pretty much all the openings. Was there anything that kind of made this one stand out the most? Because some of the other ones might have seemed pretty intriguing otherwise.
Obviously, it was humbling to have interest that, you know, it doesn't always work that way after you get fired, that you have that kind of interest. The thing that I couldn't get away from was the history in the city. And just the interview process with these guys just kept sticking to me. You know, I just felt a real connection to them. And, you know, just how many times do you get a chance to coach in the Garden? You know, it's a once-in-a-lifetime deal, and I love challenges, and I love the history of the game and trying to make history. And so, you know, when this all finally started getting really serious, you know, as much as those other teams were great and it was an awesome process from them, I couldn't keep away from this place.
Yeah, David, Mark Berman, New York Post.
Okay.
When do you plan to actually head to Latvia, and what prompted
We're
your
working on that
decision?
right now.
Okay.
The plane's warming up.
And also, just talking to some people from Memphis, they said your relationship with Gasol, you learned a valuable lesson. Do you agree with that, and you know, how so?
Well, yeah, because I really take ownership in that, you know, where we didn't necessarily click on things. That's, you know, it's my responsibility as the coach to get players to buy in and really, you know, get them to collaborate and come together. And it just, for whatever reason, we bumped head on some things. But I took that to heart. You know, my wife could tell you better than anyone. I've been meeting with some super leaders from all industries and all walks of life, and just getting their feedback on how to manage and deal with different situations, and really just tried to dive into, you know, getting better and growing from the situation. And you know, I'm really tough on myself. I self-reflect, you know, which is not always easy to look in that mirror and say that you are part of the problem. And you know, hopefully I really grew from that, and I can apply it to this situation.
And Mark, that's one of the things that I think is important for us to add. That was an important part of our discussion. You know, when you sit in front of someone and you talk about something that was a big problem for you, you hit this wall, you hit this adversity, he owned that. He owned that issue, could walk us through what he did as a person, as a leader, as a man, to try to rectify, understand what happened, and try to make sure it doesn't happen again. And so when someone owns an issue like that, we all hit adversity, but it's how you deal with it and how you learn from it. And that's one of the things that really impressed us about David.
Greg Logan of Newsday. When you talk about what happened in Memphis, it sounds like you were trying to change the style of play there, and it just didn't fit Gasol. What is your plan here? What type of style do you plan to implement here, and do you think that the ingredients here, including Porzingis, are a better fit for what you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, in Memphis, I did try to tweak the style of play and really update it and get it to where it's a more modern style without necessarily losing the power play that Zebo and Mark both had. So that's why I made sure that they probably both touched the ball record times in the post that year if you go back and look at the analytics of it. But you know, we had to open up the floor to get Mike Conley more space to open up his game, and no one suffered. And so I think everybody ended up having a great year. You know, I don't feel like the style of play was at all part of, you know, the main issue. But coming here, I just think I see athletes. I see speed. I see a physical toughness to us. I want to get up and down the court. I want to share the basketball. I want to attack the paint. But none of that will start without us being a great defensive team. You know, we're going to be a team, you know, that really plays a pressure, physical style of basketball, get a lot of deflections, try to get a lot of steals, get into the open court, and earn the right to go play a more free-flowing, attacking style of offense.
And let me add, too, that one of the attractive things in analyzing David's basketball background, especially his time in Miami, where they established a culture of, I thought, of being the best conditioned team in the NBA. And that's and I think when you do that, you give yourself an opportunity to maximize what guys can do on the court. So that was very attractive to us. Okay, we can get a culture established where we're going to be in elite condition, and we're going to be a team that competes, fights, and defends every day. And I know you guys have heard me say that a number of times since I've been here, and I think that's will become very apparent as we move forward.
Hey, David, Yaron Weitzman from Bleacher Report. Just in terms of Porzingis, you mentioned that you see him as a megastar. Just in terms of his positioning, do you see him playing more as the lone big on the floor, playing more before or next to someone else?
All of it. Why limit it? Why put a ceiling on it? All right, I just see so many different ways to use them. You know, obviously, if you play them at some five, it's like that super lineup you're always seeing from these different teams. I don't even know how you match up with them from that perspective, but he can play four. I mean, if you have another speed guy at the four, he might even be able to play just positionless. And I don't want to put any kind of ceiling on him or any of these other guys. We haven't worked together, so I want to give them a clean slate and try to build them up to be the best players they can be, and put a lot of confidence in them, in the fact that when we work at this, you can use it and apply it and be a better player because of it. So that's going to be my vision for every guy that gets in front of me. I'm going to make sure that I don't put a ceiling or have a judgment or a perspective where I'm like locked into something about these guys. I want to have a real open mind about their development and growth and allow them the freedom to grow.
Steve.
I can't even.
Steve Popper from the Bergen Record. David, you guys have talked about the long-term picture here, but the possibility of no Kristaps next year. Your thoughts on what you could be facing this year? You took a veteran team in Memphis right away. What you see for next season?
Yeah, I think it's, I see opportunity. You know, without Kristaps, you know, it's going to be some other guys that have to step in and really take on bigger roles, and also have to collaborate and lean on teammates more for us to have success and grow and get better. So, you know, that's a challenge I knew I was going into. I'm actually looking forward to it because I feel like, you know, we're really going to build something. You know, I walked into something established in Memphis, and that was something, you know, that was good for me because I had to navigate a culture that was in place while I'm filling in the gaps from what I knew from Miami. And so that was a great experience for me from that standpoint. And so now coming here just with a, you know, really a clean slate to build something special, I'm really embracing that opportunity and that challenge.
David, Mike Vorknow for The Athletic.
Hey, Mike.
Steve and Scott have talked about kind of building a culture through the past year, and you've talked about that now too. How do you plan on instilling a culture and getting accountability from these guys, and who are your influences in, you know, figuring out your philosophy on all that?
Well, obviously, Miami had a huge influence on me when you just talk about my main foundation. But none of this stuff matters if it's not genuine to you, and you don't, mold it to your personality and to the personality of the team and the franchise. So, that's got to be out of the gate how I approach it. And, how you instill it is just an everyday process of how you structure things, how you the values you set from the beginning with your team, the standards that you set for your team, and then holding people accountable throughout the organization, each other, people holding me accountable, a family affair of accountability to everyday things that we do, not skipping steps and not letting people off the hook or shortcut any days of the week. But at the same time, building something around the players that they feel like really services them and really is about making them better people and better players. And so I think when you start talking about culture, which is, that word is kind of getting abused now, I think it's more about a way of being and a way you approach every single day that you go to work. So hopefully that answers your question.
Stephan Bondi, New York Daily News. Just about when you guys talking about hopefully winning a championship one day, but also this is going to be a long process. Do you have a timetable to how long you can turn this into a competitive playoff team? And your relationship with some of the bigger stars that have been mentioned before, how much is that going to help you guys in free agency?
Well, we're not going to put, our timetable is that we're going to embrace the journey every day to get better and better every single day. I think that's the key, and I think I mentioned it earlier, and David just brought it about not skipping steps. You can't skip steps to becoming a championship caliber team. It just doesn't happen. I haven't seen it happen.
No.
And we don't have magic wands to make that happen. But the magic formula, if you will, is the daily grind. Yes. Being committed, being consistent to what we're going to be about. I think that's what you can sense and feel that we're establishing here, and that's what we're very, very excited about. So that's what we're going to do. And obviously, every time we go out to play, we want this ball club to win. We're going to be trying to win each and every night, and I'm sure I speak for Coach on that as well too. But the key in being able to become a winner, you just got to get good at the simple stuff, or get great at the simple stuff each and every day.
And that's the important part, is that we have the commitment from Jim Dolan to give us the room to not skip steps, to do the things that we think are necessary to make this team into a winning team and a winning environment. And it's about grinding. Yeah. And it's about us being committed to it and not veering from our course.
And I think that was, for me, that was the most refreshing part of when I got to speak to Mr. Dolan, to hear how connected he was with these guys on the vision. It was awesome. It made me, when I left and got in the car, I said, yeah, I think this is where I want to be. And it was really a cool experience from that standpoint. As for the other question, I can't really speak on free agency. I just know that if we build this thing right together with the guys we have here, who I'm focused on here, people will want to come.
We're now going to take 2 questions from fans submitted via social media. Jarrell via Facebook asked, what is the first thing you want to establish as coach?
Great relationships.
There you go. And Matt via Twitter asked, what style of play do you hope to establish in New York, both offensively and defensively?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, again, I want to establish a top-ranked defense, a fast defense, a disruptive defense, a versatile defense, a loud defense, for you quiet guys, a loud defense that sparks offense and gets us into the open court. And once we do have to settle in and play a really a free-flowing, open space offense that has getting everybody involved and sharing the basketball.
Thank you.
Hi, Coach. Tina Cervastio, Fox 5 New York. Sort of a two-parter. You mentioned you reached out to leaders and you talked about the people that reached out to you after Memphis. What was the best advice you got that you'll apply here, and were any of those people Pat Riley?
Yes. And some of the best advice I got was win your building. That's the most important thing. Win your building first and take care of home first. Take care of these guys. Make sure everybody feels good inside the building and feel valued, and everything else will fall into place after that. Yes, Pat was one of, I would say, probably spoke to me as much as anybody and took the time to check on me and give me advice through this process. And no one was more happy when he got the news about this, to see one of his guys here and coming back and doing this and taking this challenge. I'm sure right now he's pretty proud.
Now, I'm going to add to that because he probably won't say everything, but I spent a lot of time talking to Pat about this hire and asking him a lot of questions. What did he think David learned from his experiences in Miami to his experiences in Memphis and then getting fired? And Pat had some real insight as to what David left Miami and planned on instilling in Memphis, what went wrong, and how they came back to talk about how do I fix this again. And Pat was very, very open about some of the conversations he had with David. And again, it gave us a lot of faith and felt good about him having learned from that experience.
David, Ryan Field, ABC 7. You talk about being well-versed in the history of this place. They haven't consistently won here in a long time. What would it mean for you personally to be that guy, to build that winner? And how much did that risk-reward factor play into your decision to come here?
Well, one, I'm not doing this alone, which feels great. I know that I'm tackling this with some great people. Yeah, the risk-reward thing was, I just said, to hell with it. It's the Knicks. What are we talking about here? To have an opportunity not just to coach for this franchise, but to be a part of a rebuild that gets this place back to long-term winning. I couldn't pass that up. I just felt like I don't want to look back on my life and say I didn't take this chance. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I just know that I'm going to get to work. I know I have a lot of faith and confidence in my work ethic and my openness to learning and growing and taking in support, and hopefully we can build this thing where it should be.
Bruce Beck, WNBC TV. David, congratulations.
Thank you.
11 coaches in the past 17 years. Why will this be different? Why will you last?
I can't speak for everyone else before me. I was built by two tough women over here. They got me here. I've gone through all kinds of seasons as an assistant and now as a head coach. I feel like my experience, my personality, their vision, the way that these guys have already kind of laid down some bricks of the culture and the future going forward. And, with this city behind us, that connection and that collaboration, I just felt like I really feel like this job was for me, to be honest with you. That's the best way I can put it. And like I said, I can't speak on any coach that was here before me because they had some great coaches here who are friends of mine and that I deeply respect. But all I can do is just tell you that I know myself and the people that we're going to bring in around me, and I just really feel confident that we're going to get this thing going.
Simone Sandri, Gazzetta dello Sport, Italy. Aside from the Gasol situation, in the past you've been very dismissive of European basketball. Is that going to be an issue with the fact that 2 European players are going to be the cornerstone of the franchise? And also in the past couple of years, this team became kind of Eurocentric with the scouting and with the signing. Things are going to change with you in command now?
Well, I don't know about that part, but I would say I don't know where the dismissive part about Europe came from. But I respect all basketball from everywhere. I have great friends that coach European basketball that are a lot smarter than I am. So that part, I think, when it comes to that, I don't put everybody in a box that way. Players are from everywhere. Every player is their own individual. I have to give that person the respect as an individual, no matter where they're from. Go ahead, Scott.
And let me add, as a franchise and organization, we're going to track players wherever they are across the globe. We want the very best players to come in here to build the very best basketball team that we can build. So whether that be Europe, South America, Africa, United States, we're going to track them, we're going to follow them, and if they fit what we're about, then they're going to become a New York Knicks one day.
Right.
Steve, Ian Begley from ESPN.com. Just along the lines of Bruce's question, this is not to slight Coach Fizdale or what may happen from here forward, but I think 8 full-time head coaches since 2002. You've been here for several of them. Just from your perspective, what do you think is different about this time, and what leads you to believe that it can be sustainable this time?
I think we've seen how things can go wrong. And I've seen a lot of mistakes that have taken place, and just mistakes and maybe not the right patience in terms of trying to build things the right way. This whole notion that in New York you have to win yesterday. And we're about winning, but we're about creating something that we can win for a sustained period of time. And I think we've seen a lot of shortcuts and swinging for the fences, trying to hit home runs all the time. And Jim has given us the room to try to do it differently. And I said it the first day I came on when Phil left, that we were going to build this thing through defense and accountability and developing our players, and we're committed to doing that. So that's the difference. And we're going to stay true to that.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Mark Berman, New York Post. You have 3 young, talented point guards. What's
guards.
Okay.
Guards.
Well, what's the plan for Frank? And he played some off the ball. I mean, how do you see that whole situation?
Throw them out there. Put them out there together. I'm about speed, skill, aggression, attacking, playmaking. And all of these guards have that ability. And so I just see a lot of versatility there. I see a lot of combinations we can throw on the floor together. Obviously, we're going to develop the heck out of them. And I'm going to keep my foot up the butt about defending. I want them, really taking the challenge and expanding their game defensively. And that'll be a part of their development. And through our drill work, through our system, is really taking all these guys up another notch from a defensive perspective. So I just see a lot of skill and speed. I don't necessarily want to say who's point guard, who's this. I just see some talented guys.
Brian Mahoney, Associated Press. We saw the respect that you have from LeBron and Dwayne Wade, Hall of Fame kind of players. Just wondering what you do to reach that kind of player to make you so respected by them. And for Steve and Scott, when that level of player shows the respect they have for the coach, how much did that matter into your process there when you hear those kind of things?
Well, I'll start off. I think the big thing that we found, and that's obviously terrific that some of the game's greats recognized David for who he is as a man and as a coach. But the players that were not that, just the guys 1 through 15 have the reviews coming back on him were all very consistent and similar, that he invested in us, that he's going to develop you, he's going to challenge you, he's going to hold you accountable. And so I think that's the important thing, because David has shown the ability to relate to a number of players across the board, not just the star players.
And, I just think he said it. That's really, you get their respect through that. Showing up every day, putting in the time with them, telling them the truth, which isn't always easy, but telling them the truth. A lot of times, where at least for me, it's worked where I care about them as human beings. And I spend time with their families, and I'm there for them when they've gone through some serious, real personal stuff, and vice versa. I spend more time with my players than I do with my family. So when you're that close, why not, invest in a person as a human being and really care about them as a person. And I think maybe that's been what's connected me to these guys. And it doesn't hurt, with the guys you named, to win. When you win together and you hold that trophy together, and, and failing, in the 2 finals we lost together, you learn a lot about people. And if you can all just leave the egos at the door, a lot of times you find that you end up being really closer than just coach player.
Yeah, Brian, one of his players said to us that he has the ability to make you uncomfortable and push you to a place where you don't really want to be, but then he can bring you back. And so it's little things like that that I think are important in terms of the psyche and the mentality of a player, and to understand how you can get them to those places where they allow them to get better and allow them to grow, and he can do that.
David, your own Weitzman, Bleacher Report. You've talked a lot about things you've learned from your time in Memphis. Is looking back, what's something maybe you wish you'd done differently or would have done differently? And Scott, just a follow-up. You said David is, you mentioned that he's an innovative coach. What about him do you view as innovative?
You want to start? You want to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I just felt like when I went in there, I saw a team that was, hitting that point in age that their window was shrinking. And I probably went in there a little too much guns blazing and just trying to push them push them. And, I think I didn't let certain things grow organically and just let it happen naturally through the way we structure things. And, I really took that to heart going into the summer after the first year and really tried to learn from that and come back into the season with a different approach from that standpoint. And so, coming into this and seeing the lay of the land now and how these guys have already laid down some bricks, I feel like it'll be a lot more smoother process from that standpoint of being able to collaborate with these guys, lay down a culture, rebuild this, and, because they already had something going there, and that's a tough thing to navigate, but here I feel like, we're going to do this thing together, and that's going to be pretty fun for me.
Yeah, while David obviously brings a fundamental base of what he wants to teach and all, what we found him to be is a guy who's constantly seeking new information, trying to, he doesn't put the game into a box. So, I mean, even in his time in Memphis, you take guys who, like both Randolph and Gasol, for instance, they took career numbers in terms of three-point shot attempts. I mean, where a number of other coaches probably would not have thought to do that. He's constantly tinkering with plays, and again, he's going around the coaches around the country, just again, trying to stretch his knowledge base and not think of the game in maybe say the old static ways of, everybody has a position. You hear him talk a lot about positionless basketball and trying, not being afraid to try different combinations. And I think with where the game is going today, that's a very appealing quality that he brings.
George Willis, New York Post. David, you've talked about what your plans are for on the court, but in this city, there are a lot of things that happen off the court that can impact a team, a lot of distractions, things like that. How prepared are you for some of the brush fires that can occur coaching in New York City?
I think when you live in Miami during that era where we went to 4 titles, there was a lot of distractions. There was a lot of stuff that could get guys into trouble. But I think that's where, when we talk about culture and really helping these guys become great professionals, there are things that we have to provide them with: information, education, understanding, patience, that we need to just constantly surround them with that, and that'll help them, I think, navigate this landscape. You can't stay away from everything, but you just try to put in place systematic ways to help your players and to help everyone within the organization, navigate the landscape.
I think that's what we're here to help them with. I mean, we've seen all the brush fires. and forest fires. We've seen them all. So that's why we're in this together.
Yeah.
How do we help these guys navigate the situations that they're confronted with? How do we help each other navigate the situations that we're confronted with? But it's you have to look at it and know that you're in it together, and you're gonna have bumps along the road. But we've got to be together and trying to figure out how we're going to navigate and fight through them.
Hey, David, this is Bill Roden with ESPN's Undefeated. Welcome. I got another brush fire question. But seriously, do you think, for you too, Steve, you've grown up here, you've known that basketball sometimes in the NBA is no better than when New York is playing in May. You've got, Boston is coming, Philadelphia is coming, Toronto, but just some of your, are there any peculiar challenges do you think, of coming to this city and coaching? That's basically my question.
Well, I think probably the biggest challenge is the expectations, obviously, from the fan base, from the media. You know that coming into this, and that's part of that's what I like. I actually like the fact that there's an expectation here to have your team playing in May. I mean, I love that, and that's who wouldn't want to be a part of getting the team back to that. And I think you either got to go after it or you're afraid, and I've never been afraid. So I'm really looking forward to this challenge, and like I said, these guys are going to help me through this deal and help me. He's been here the longest and understands all of this stuff, and I think that's going to really help me have success here.
And we talked about this in the interview process about what kind of players can play here, and one of the things I've learned is that there are a whole lot of guys that want to live in New York, but there are not a whole lot of guys that are built to play in New York. And that's part of our job, is to distinguish between those two things and find the guys who have the fortitude and the makeup to be able to survive in this place. And that's different. And so we have to make sure we have some filters and try to make as few mistakes as we possibly can in identifying the right people for this team.
David, Adam Zagoria from SNY, congratulations.
Thanks, Adam.
Obviously, the NBA draft is coming up. The combine is next week. How involved will you be in that process, and how important are these draft picks that you guys have coming up?
Yeah, David will be accompanying us to the combine. I'm happy about that. The search is done now, so we can go with a coach to Chicago. So that'll be a great feeling. And, that's the time we'll sit down and interview a number of the prospects and really dive in and find out who's going to be the best fit for us moving forward, for how we want to play the game, the character of the young man, et cetera, et cetera. So we're gonna put him to work right away. So,
which I love.
We're going to take 2 more questions.
David, I'm not sure how much thought you've given this yet, but one issue going forward for the three of you guys is like Joakim Noah. I mean, he was separated from the team, mutual agreement after a disagreement with Jeff Hornacek. What do you think of Joe as a player, and have you considered the idea of him maybe rejoining the roster now that you're here?
He reached out to me and just congratulated me. And, like I said, I'm not putting a ceiling on anybody. Whoever is on our team in front of me is going to get my full attention and investment. And he's obviously given me fits from back in the day. I've got some Noah nightmares from when he was in Chicago, some of those wars. But, like I said, I'm not putting the cap on anybody.
yeah, and right now, what we said to you at the end of the season, still, the situation is still at that point, and we're not taking any options off the table in terms of whether Joe will be here or not be here. So we'll keep you posted as we move forward.
David, Chris Heisman from the Bergen Record.
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel like your views on player development and your philosophies sort of align with this organization?
I didn't hear the last part. Can you say
How
that?
do you feel like your views and your philosophies on player development align with this organization specifically?
Oh, I mean, it was like you just overlapped when we met in the interview process, and when they started talking about their perspective on player development. I mean, they just hit a lot of bullet points with me from the standpoint of how we assess our players to start, having a view from the standpoint of don't limit them, try to develop things that can really expand their game, developing defense, having coaches that are not just consistently in the gym, but consistently available at all times to eat, to hang out, to come back. I think just the transparency of sharing our work. I'm a person that likes to collect a lot of information, and I like giving the work eyes and a view, and now everybody can see it and say, okay, what if we tweak this, and what if we fix this, and how do we share in this, and so I think when they kept everything they were saying in the interview process is not everyone is saying the exact same things, and what they were saying just overlapped with my philosophy.
And when we talk about development, one of the things that definitely came across from David, aside from the on-court development, the off-court development is just as important to him. And I think Steve and I both, when we got together 10, 11 months ago, we felt the same way. So because there's an importance to that. Yeah, we know our jobs are dependent upon a guy's success as a basketball player, but developing the holistic person, we believe, will enhance his ability to be a better basketball player on the floor. So that was very appealing in talking, and came through very clear in talking with David.
Yeah, I think, David, when we talked about our philosophy, we talked about just the general philosophy when we brought Craig Robinson in to be someone that could somehow impact both the off-the-court development and on-the-court development. And that resonated with David, and we believe in it to our core. And so we'll definitely be in sync on those kinds of things.
And the best part, I feel like I've lived it, and it's not foreign to me in any way. I felt that we had a good thing going there, even in Memphis with the development program. And so just their vision of this whole deal, it really just it connected with everything that I thought, and looking at the roster and the talent that we have here, I just felt like it is just a real good marriage.
Okay. Thank you, Steve, Scott, and David. And thank you to everyone who joined us here today and those who tuned in. The entire press conference will be available on demand on Knicks.com.
Thanks, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you all.
See you up there, John.